this all while I am a nurse practitioner and healthcare provider, board certified. I'm here for educational purposes only. Okay, so this should not replace medical advice from your personal doctor or provider. And especially since everyone's medical history is a little bit different. My goal today is to provide you some practical, evidence-based information that you can use as a tool to further conversations with your doctor about many of the health things that we talk about. All right. Well, you know me, Alice Benjamin, nurse practitioner. You might have seen me from my locals on NBC, LA News. I pop on there from time to time. I'm podcast host. I think I'm a lifelong volunteer for ambassador for ARP. I'm expecting a pin pretty soon, Antoine. But my mantra is I like to talk to people before they become my patients. It's something I'm very, very passionate about because I think with a little bit of information that goes a long way. So my goal is to keep you well informed so you can make the best and healthiest decisions for yourself. All right. Okay, so today's objectives. Um, by the end of today's presentation, I'm hoping that you'll have a better understanding, rather, of why our bodies respond differently to heat, especially as we get older. I'm hoping that you walk away better being able to recognize early warning signs of heat illness before it becomes dangerous, and also having some practical strategies that we can use all summer long to stay cool, active, and healthy. And so these are tips that we're going to be sharing. It's one thing to learn something, but it's another thing to apply it. So, and also sharing is caring. So make sure these are things that you'll be able to share with your family members, your friends, your coworkers, and neighbors and things like that. So let's get into it here. He's enjoying himself on the beach, isn't he? Okay. Now let's make summer memories, not medical emergencies. I'm down with that. When we think of the summer, we're thinking about fun, enjoying ourselves. But unfortunately, I do recognize that this is also a time where we have a lot of preventable emergencies, especially those that are heat related. Because every summer, we see an increase of people coming through our doors with dehydration, heat exhaustion, severe sunburns, falls related to dizziness, and even some life-threatening heat strokes. Okay. So not many people think of the heat. They don't tie heat and medical emergency together. Those are things we don't generally tie together. But these heat-related illnesses can actually start very subtly, and you won't even know it's creeping up. And it might start by like maybe you're feeling a little bit tired. You might develop a little bit of a headache. Maybe you're feeling a little bit dizzy while you're gardening or outdoors walking. But those are early cues and early signs that we don't want to ignore, especially when we know it's hot outside. These are early warning signs that your body's saying, I need help. And so the good news is that many of these things that we're talking about, these heat-related illnesses, are preventable. And so that's what we're going to spend this next hour or so chatting about. And then also, I want to invite you to please add questions into the chat box. If I don't see them right away, we will get to them. Antoine does keep me honest and on track with them. So let's go here. Okay, so why heat affects us differently as we age. Now, one of the things that I think this is very unexpected for many people. They don't necessarily think of um, heat-related illnesses. They've experienced heat, and some people say, this is nothing. Try coming back from the Midwest, and here in California, I think we've been pretty spoiled. We got pretty good weather most of the year round, but recently we've had some very hot days. But here's the answer: heat does affect us differently, especially as we age, I should say, and that's because our body becomes a little less efficient with how it regulates temperatures as we age. So I want you to think of your body as a car engine. And so many of us have probably heard that, right? Well, what happens when you're driving your car for long distances? The engine gets hot, and so it relies on a cooling system to keep everything running properly. Well, your body has its own cooling system, but over time, the system doesn't work as effectively. And so normally what happens is your body temperature starts to rise. Your brain, specifically area called your hypothalamus, that acts as your body's thermostat. And then It detects an increase in your body temperature, and it generally tells your body, gives your body signals and instructions like, hey, blood vessels, you widen, what's something that we call vasodilatation. And when those blood vessels widen, the blood moves closer to the surface and allows your skin to disperse heat into the air. And so at the same time, your sweat glands are also instructed to produce sweat. Well, as sweat evaporates, it carries the heat away from your body, and that's what helps lower the body temperature. But as we get older, those responses become slower and less effective. And sometimes we don't, as we age, we don't sweat as much, or we don't start sweating until our body temperature is a lot higher. It's like someone reset our temperature. I don't know about that. And the kids sometimes play with the AC and the temperature. So it's like someone's reset your thermostat, if you will, as we age. And so those responses, whether it's the blood vessels not widening, we're not releasing enough, making enough sweat, and then on top of that, as if there can be more, right? Our senses for thirst naturally declines. So even though our body is losing fluid and sweating and breathing and things like that, our brain isn't sending a strong enough signal to tell you to drink, right? Drink water. By the way, we're talking about drinking water. And so that means that dehydration can sneak up on you before you even realize it. And then dehydration, that's a whole nother problem. So when you lose water, your blood volume decreases. That's when your blood pressure starts to drop. The heart has to work harder to try to compensate. And it sets off this whole cascade of things that happen. And next thing you know, heart's pounding and you're feeling dizzy. That's kind of what we'll feel at the end. And so that's many of the reason why when you're outdoors and it's hot, you start to feel a little weak, a little dizzy. You feel like your heart might be racing a little bit. So all of these things are working collectively, initially meant to help rescue us, but as we age, again, someone said reset your thermostat, and did some things, and this is what can lead to those early symptoms that if they don't go identified, or we don't intervene sooner or put some precautionary things in place, this is what can lead to those heat-related illnesses. And so um, I will say that, and especially also, these things are changing as we age, but even more so if you're someone who has heart disease, diabetes, or kidney disease, that extra stress on the body can actually even be more significant. So finally, our bodies simply just recover more slowly with age. So even these things are happening naturally anyways, and then perhaps maybe I have one of these medical conditions, and then golly, the body's just not able to recover or do what it used to do as well as when you're younger. So all these things can, what you feel is like, I'm going out to do some gardening. You've done it for years, you never had an issue. But as we've aged, just know that we need to be more attentive and aware that these things are going to be happening at the cellular level. These are things that are happening. So all you know is that I'm going outside, I'm going to go garden a little bit. But these things have been changing. And so this is what puts us at risk. And our body basically has to work harder to try to regulate our temperature. So there's some things that we can put in place to help keep it cool and make sure that we restore and keep a good fluid balance. So let's get into a little bit more detail about these factors that increase the risk of these medical conditions. So think, as I mentioned, and let me move this for a second. So when I mentioned this, heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, lung disease, those things can make it more difficult for the body to tolerate heat. And that's just because, and I'll just say a couple, for example, with heart disease, maybe your heart is a little bit more weakened, or maybe your heart beats irregularly. Well, when that body's in that compensation stage of trying to help us recover, our heart might just be a little bit disadvantaged, if you will. And and if have a condition where maybe you're fluid restricted because maybe you have what we call heart failure, and so your heart's not able to tolerate a lot of additional fluids. You're on a fluid restriction. Well, that's going to kind of put you behind the eight ball a little bit with trying to recover and trying to stay hydrated. So there are a few things that can actually impact and disadvantage us when we go out into the heat. Things like medications, like your diuretics, those are your water pills, if you will, right? Many blood pressure medications. Those things alter our vascular system. So our body's not able to do that natural response to try to rescue us because it's been limited by the medications that we're taking, meant to help us with blood pressure. But in a pinch, when I need the blood vessels to do something, then they're a little restricted there. Limited mobility and physical disability, those can make it difficult for us to get to cooler environments. So you might find yourself out somewhere. It's getting hot, you're dehydrated, you're feeling some symptoms, and you might be delayed with being able to get to a cooler environment. We also know that people who live alone or they're socially isolated, sometimes you need someone to you may not recognize you're having these changes or feeling bad, or maybe you start to feel bad and you're just kind of rendered where you're not really able to do much for yourself. It's not having someone around you to recognize that or help you can also contribute, put you at higher risk. Not having access to not having access to AC or cool environments, that definitely is an issue. And during the summer months when ACs go out, you know, that can be very problematic. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, it's very important to relocate to a place where they do have AC. Now, sometimes you can go like maybe to the local Y or things like that. But listen, a hotel lobby will do. Anywhere where you can get to some AC. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Especially if you've been someone who's been troubled with your ACs kind of in and out, just know like, well, where's our backup plan? Where are we going? And then if you're someone who's had previous heat illness, your body's shown you once. What did Oprah say? Or no, Maya Angelou. When someone shows you who they are, believe it. So when your body tells you, hey, this is how I respond to heat, believe it, and just do your best to try to prevent yourself from getting in those situations there. Okay. So dehydration, listen to your body. So I'm just going to kind of curious here. How much water do y'all drink? Um, so if you guys wouldn't mind putting in the chat box, I'm just kind of curious. How much water are you drinking? Now listen, I have my water right here. I've been drinking water, just so you know. But just curious, how many glasses of water are y'all drinking on let's say on a daily average? Not even, never mind this a hot day. How many days? Okay, 60 ounces. Okay. I try to drink 8 glasses. Okay, very good. And 60 ounces is a little bit about 8 glasses, 8 cups. Okay. 10. Okay, all right, Marissa, I like it. 10 cups. Okay. Good. Now, I will say water is like the gasoline in our car. If you don't have any gas, you're not going to go anywhere. So it's very important that we keep our body hydrated. And so, some people will say, "Oh, I don't need to drink water. I'll drink water when I'm thirsty," as if that's the indicator. Well, not necessarily. That's like waiting for the check engine light to come on before you take your car to go get maintenance. You should take your car before you see the check engine light, right? So we should not wait till we're thirsty to drink water. One, just overall, period, point blank. But then also as we get older, and if you have any of these medical conditions or any of these medications that I've talked about, we should not wait. Some people aren't even thirsty at all. Medications can alter that for us. So don't wait. I want you to think of, you know what, I want to keep my you gotta keep oil in your car. I'm gonna use this car analogy, although I don't know how to fix a car. But keep oil in your car because one thing's moving smoothly, right? We don't want any hiccups. So it's very important that not only is the amount that you drink, and then so yes, so coffee and OJ, orange juice, do count towards the volume of what you're drinking. But I will say sometimes, like for example, coffee, I can add that to the amount of fluids that I'm drinking, but coffee is a diuretic. So it's going to have the adverse effect of making me want to pee. So I will eventually be at a net loss. Just be aware of that. Okay. But staying hydrated is going to be very important. It's not just of the volume that you're drinking, but also spreading it out throughout the day. So for example, and you guys are pretty spot on with the kind of roughly 8 glasses, 65 ounces. That's about it a day. So drinking water is important, but also you need to space this out, space your water. So if I drink all my water at the top of the morning, yeah, I'm gonna get it inside. I'm gonna drink, it's gonna go through the system, but a lot of that I'm gonna go ahead and pee out because it's too much at one time for my kidneys to tolerate. So the kidney's like, oh, fluid overload, dump, dump, dump. Like we're drowning. Sometimes it's too much at one time. So I want you to realize that just as much as it's important to drink roughly 8 glasses of water a day, it's also important to space it out. So some things and even before I get to that, how do we know, like, again, thirst is a late indicator, some other signs that your body might be dehydrated. Your mouth is dry. You might feel really tired, kind of weak, like I don't have any energy. Now, those are very vague symptoms, but those can be very much related. And when I said, you don't necessarily have to be cotton mouth, but you can feel just very dry. Headaches, dizziness, that's just from not having a lot of fluid on board. And then your urine. So you should be looking at your urine when you pee, just FYI. I know we go to the bathroom and we do our thing and we flush, but we want to look. You want to keep an eye. So if you start to notice that your urine is dark colored, that may be a sign of dehydration. Now, urine can change colors for other medical conditions and maybe even on some medicines, but we should get, to look at that. Sometimes that's an early indicator. But in addition to drinking water, it's also very important. You just realize you can get hydration and fluids from foods, things like watermelons, cucumbers, those type of things. Those are just as equally important. So if you're someone like, oh, I don't really like water, I don't drink a lot of water, some of that you can compensate by the different types of foods that you eat, right? Now, if you eat a lot of crackers and pretzels and stuff, that's probably not going to help you with your hydration. Oh, actually, it might make you thirsty and drink, but we want to incorporate foods that have high water contents. That can be helpful for us. So these are some things to keep in mind. Carry a bottle with you. And what I recommend is, when something's out of sight, out of mind, then you're not aware of it. So I literally, when I'm at home or even if I'm going out, I try to bring a bottle of water with me. So that way I have it. And that way I can just, sip a little bit here, sip a little bit there. Even if I don't feel thirsty, I'll sip a little bit. My body, my cells are going to thank me for it. So think of some really great ways to type of incorporate this, like putting fruit or vegetables in your water. That's helpful as well. But we want to listen to our body when it's dehydration. Dehydration can call at the cellular level really kind of shrivel. If you think of it like a grape and a raisin, your cells are going to end up like raisins, and not the grapes that they should be if we're dehydrated. So that is something that's important to look at. Now, we're going to also talk about signs of heat illness. Now, I'm just kind of curious to know, has anybody experienced kind of heat illness or like close to it or felt like you're out somewhere and it's so hot you're gonna pass out? Just kind of curious. Because usually once that happens, you kind of set yourself straight like, oh, I'm not doing that again. It's kind of a hard lesson sometimes, but I definitely have found myself in situations where I was really hot, I was ready to pass out. And retrospectively, I looked and I did not drink the waters, or those type of things that I should have been doing. So now on this, yes, on my bike in severe heat and heavy backpack. Oh gosh, Bernice, yes. So also be well, and we'll get into it, but sometimes we want to time our activities so we're not outside in those hot moments, which can predispose us to these heat illnesses. But I have this slide up and it says signs of heat illness. Now I'm going to tell you yes, there are two. There's heat exhaustion, there's heat stroke. It's a fine line between the two. Once you enter one, you can enter into the other stage very, very quickly. So yes, I have it spelled out a little bit differently, but if you look at the heat exhaustion, kind of I'm feeling a little faint, a little dizzy, right? I mean, that's likely what's happening is your fluid volume is low, your blood vessels are trying to dilate, not enough volume to kind of circulate where it needs to. Your body's trying to sweat to get rid of this excess heat. You're starting to feel not good, getting clammy, getting pale. You're starting to have what even feels like hot flashes. You might even feel nauseous, but the heart is beating hard. It's trying to compensate for us, and you might have some cramps. Listen, you don't need to wait for all those to happen. As soon as you start to feel some of those, retreat. Retreat to the shade, the AC, grab you a fan, something, drink some water. And oftentimes I'm saying drink water, but by the time you're feeling this, you because of the sweating and things that happen, you might even need to replace some fluid and some electrolytes. So that's when things like Gatorade, and those type of drinks come in. Now, I'm not going to say drink Gatorade all the time, but when you find yourself in these type of situations, oftentimes we need to consider some electrolyte replacement too. But this can pivot really, it can change to heat stroke very quickly. Now that this is different from the stroke where we think of the neurologic condition, right, where you have one-sided weakness. This is a different type of stroke. This is where due to our body not being able to respond or compensate, or it's just gotten to a level where it's like it's beyond what our body can do to compensate. This requires 911 immediate attention. Immediate attention. You're gonna, you're gonna feel even worse, and your temperature is gonna get so high that your body's not even able to compensate or do any of its own regulatory measures. And so this is why we say call 911. If you're around someone, they start to exhibit some of these symptoms, please move them to the shade. Please get them some water. Please help, have them sit down. But while you're waiting for other people to help you, but this is going to require some other interventions. By the time you get to heat stroke, you should be on your way to an emergency room for sure. For sure. Do not pass go. This is something that can be happen very serious. And if goes on unchecked, it can actually cause some irreversible damage if the body's not able to find some relief here. So staying cool during hot weather. Now, most people do dress for the weather, I think. I think in California, they tease us sometimes. They're like, oh, this is a state where you can wear shorts all year round. Make sure that you're wearing, when you're going out, that you're wearing lightweight clothing, nothing too thick, something that's breathable. Um, and then also, if you have cooling towels, bring a cooling towel with you if you have one. Bernice was talking about backpacking in the heat. Bernice, I want you to make sure that you're strategically scheduling those strenuous activities and doing it either early in the morning when there's maybe a little overcast, it's still kind of cool outside, or in the evenings when the sun has gone down. Between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. is when it's usually the hottest outside. So schedule activities, outdoor and strenuous activities, particularly outside of those times. Definitely prioritize some shade breaks in there. AC as much as possible. Okay. And this is especially during hot weather. It's not being bougie, it's not being lazy. No one's going to judge you. It's like, oh, you can't handle the heat. No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I need to go indoors. I need some AC. This is also a very important time where we need to check on our neighbors, especially those who are at higher risk. Maybe they are elderly, maybe they're disabled, maybe they have medical conditions that you might be aware of. But be a kind neighbor. Check on your neighbors. Um, some people, and I've actually encountered this. I've had some patients who, they come in, they're explaining to me what's going on. And I don't know I always ask about how's home life, what's going on in the house, tell me about the kids. And generally some other things will come up about the family or, our AC's been broken for the last week. We don't have any money. I don't want to ask my daughter. Things will come up. And so even if you're not able to solve the immediate problem, perhaps at least identifying it and maybe pointing them to some resources is important. And this one I can't emphasize enough. Stay informed by looking at the weather report. So some of us, we kind of assume, oh, it's going to be a nice sunny day, but we may not anticipate how hot it's going to be. Please look at the weather app. Anticipate the weather. I've gotten up sometimes and the weather looks pretty good. But then when I kind of scroll down and look at what it's going to be later in the day, I'm like, ooh, 101, I'm not going anywhere. Or I will alter my activities for the day. So those are some things that can help you stay cool during hot weather. And I will want to display this myth. So fans, you say, oh, I'll be fine. I have a fan. Fans aren't necessarily enough, especially in extreme heat. You're just blowing hot air. It does not provide relief. I don't know if anybody has felt that, but I've traveled I was in Mississippi. This was a while ago, but I was in Mississippi, like, oh, I was like, they said they didn't have AC where we were going, but they had fans. Don't worry. I about passed out. I said, this is crazy. And I literally was like drinking so much water, trying to stay cool, stripping down to like my tank top and shorts. It was just really hot. So just realize that fans are helpful, but don't rely on them as the ultimate solution when it's hot. We do need to get to some AC or some shade. Now, exercise is very important. Oh, let's see, Bernie said, I started to feel faint. I put my head over the backpack on the ground until oh, yes, Bernice, we don't want you passing out. Thank you for the reminder. Between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that's not, unless you're going to be indoors in the AC, like in a gym exercising, I would not go outdoors. I would not weather the outdoors. And especially as we're older, medications and those type of things, I wouldn't risk it. Okay, now but we do want movement is medicine. It's very healthy, right? We want to stay active. And so what are some of the activities you can do? Sometimes you just need to alter the activities based on the weather. Now, some people say, I'm not exercising, it's too hot. I'm not mad at you, especially on very hot days. I'm not mad at you. Please take that day. You know what's best. I don't want you passing out. But if you are, like I want to find activities that I can still be engaged in during these hot months. Walking, that's a nice low impact exercise. You can walk outdoors. Again, ideally, when there's some overcast, when the sun's not bright and shining, you can, walk indoors on your treadmill on a walking pad. Swimming is also a good full body exercise. Kind of get in the water. That can be kind of cool and provide some relief. It's also really good on the joints, by the way. And then pickleball, I think that's a new thing. Everybody's playing pickleball these days. So pickleball, that's a good sport to kind of, get active, get moving. You're usually with others, so you're not going to be alone or isolated. So if you do start to get hot and weary, there's some folks around. But again, time these activities, um, looking at the not only the temperature, but the sunshine. If it's like overcast, even better. Make sure you stay hydrated. Now, we talked about timing of fluids. So just kind of curious. I want to poll the room. When you drink water, like let's say you're going out for some outdoor activities. When do you drink your water? Do you time your waters like, oh, I'm about to go outside. Might be a little warm. Let me make sure I drink water. Are you drinking water before you go out? Just curious. I walk inside them all. That's good. Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you, and I think this is a good hack. I drink, I will drink a bottle of water about an hour or hour and a half before I go somewhere. And that's because it gives me time to drink the water. So my kidneys aren't overwhelmed. So I'm not just going to immediately pee it out. That hour and a half gives the water enough time to go through my digestive system and go to where it needs to go. So my cells are feeling like boosted up. They're feeling nice and hydrated. If I'm going to pee, I have time to pee before I leave. And so, start planning like that. That kind of makes sure you have a little, if you will, a little extra gas in your tank before you go out and start, spinning around out in the heat. So time your fluids and then actually always bring fluids with you. Yes, and we are going to get to some sunscreen. All right, Bonnie, you saw my slides. Okay, so when you go outside, you definitely want to consider, not consider, you should be using products that have SPF. Now, I got my hand hydrating mineral sunscreen, and they can be like small enough to put in my pocket, in my purse, sit in my car, something like that. I usually keep something like this small in my car. But using SPF, that is has skin protection factor is what that SPF stands for, and it helps with protect your skin against the UV rays that are outdoors. Now, sunscreen is going to be important, whether it's sunny, overcast, because those UV rays can, they're out there, whether the sun is brightly shining or it's overcast. So you want to use SPF to protect your skin daily. And let's see, sunscreen. What do you recommend for sunscreen? I use a SPF of 30. That's pretty standard. You can get them in higher amounts. And so the higher the amount of SPF, the more UV rays it blocks. So like SPF 30 blocks about 97%, let's see, 97% of UV rays. And then like SPF 50 blocks 98, SPF 100 blocks 99. So it's not as much difference there. So SPF 30 is pretty good standard. Apply it. If you start to sweat and after a couple of hours of being outside, you'll need to reapply. But that's one way to protect your skin from those UV rays that can cause aging skin, wrinkles, increased risk for cancers, those type of things. But in addition to that, wearing whether you have a hat, my shades are in the car, but like a sun cap, something like that, that literally can help you provide some relief if you're not in immediate shade. Sunglasses are helpful. Wearing loose, light colored clothing is also helpful, protecting your skin. And then also, because it's hot, generally we're not going to have maybe you might not have as many clothes. Maybe you have shorts and a tank top on, which it's hot. You want to be lightly clothed. And even if you're not in direct sunlight, there could be some UV exposure. So it's still going to be important also, a little bit from a pivot from heat, but to protect your skin. It's also going to be important to do, check your skin out. You should be aware of what your skin's looking like. And if you see any moles or anything like that, you'll want to look for any type of asymmetry, border, the colors, any discoloration, and look for some characteristics, especially if you have any type of mole that's changing. So monitor your skin health too. But that comes with, being outside. We want to make sure we're hydrated and we're cool, but we also want to protect our skin. Baby sunscreen. No, baby sunscreen is just fine. As long as it has like that SPF in there, that's fine. Yeah. Uh, Thanks for mentioning that, Annette. Okay. Let's see. Myth.
Hey, Nurse Alice, a separate question that I wanted to throw out there too is,
Sure.
I had never heard of baby sunscreen. That's a new one for me. But when it comes to sunscreen, is there waterproof? So if I'm going to be maybe at the beach or something like that, should I consider, if I know I'm going to be getting into the water, should I consider waterproof sunscreen? Because I know based on the
Yeah.
SPF, that determines also how many times you need to put it on within a certain amount of time.
Yes, and because there's so many differences, so you can some of the products will say waterproof, but eventually it's not ultimately like ironclad waterproof. You still would need to reapply it. Some might say sweat proof. And but at the end of the day, when you once you put that kind of that lotion or that cream in, it's on your skin, it gets absorbed, it serves as a protectant layer, but there's not one that's truly, truly waterproof. It does come off, it'll weaken and it'll start to come off with water, with sweat and things like that. But there are some that say they're water resistant, so maybe it doesn't dissipate as quickly. But yeah, if you're at the beach, you can go for that. Yeah, that's helpful. Now, I will say sunscreen is not just for the beach. Even if you're going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, and then going to get your oil change, still put sunscreen. If you're going outdoors, you should be putting sunscreen on. We don't just want to provide our skin protection only when we're going to the beach. Anytime we're outdoors and potentially exposed to those UV rays, we should do that. Now, travel without surprises. Traveling can sometimes present as an additional hurdle when we're trying to stay safe and cool. Because we're so busy with our travel arrangements, getting from one gate to another. Am I going to get my ride? I got to worry about my luggage and where's my tickets? Who has the passports? And so many other things. So we're so preoccupied. It's going to be very important and also to help you prevent jet lag, to stay hydrated. So now, I know the thing like you can't go take water through the TSA check line, but you should drink water. You should, again, I use this hour rule, like hour and a half. I'm drinking some water or drinking a bottle of water before I travel. So I'm hydrated, have some kind of, my cells are nice and hydrated, but still, it doesn't hurt to bring maybe a small, reusable water bottle with you. That way, if you have water and you get to TSA, you can pour it out, but you still have your container, right? But keeping water with you is going to be very important. And I put 2 bottles of water in my check bag. That way, wherever I land and when I get to my bag, I got to get from the airport to the hotel. It's going to be a while. Airport water, as we know, is like $20 a bottle. I always put water in my luggage so I can make sure that I stay hydrated. Um, oh, I didn't know that, Nicole. I didn't know you could take water through. Maybe you need a note. You probably need a note to take water through the TSA. Um, it's going to be my no note needed. Wow, I'd have to explore that because I'm always seeing TSA telling everybody throw your. They don't bother to ask if it's medical related. Okay, bring an empty bottle to the airport and fill it up. Yeah, that's what I would. That's what I generally do. I have to throw mine away. I've always had to throw my water away. So, but I'm curious to. I'll have to look that up. But anyways, I put water in my luggage, and then I'm bringing some drinking water 1 hour before I leave out. I have water in my luggage, and then like a reusable with me as I'm going. And I know some people won't like it, but I do drink when they walk around on the plane. They're offering water. I always like, here, I'll take a water. Even if I'm not thirsty, I'm drinking the water because I know my cells want it. But so doing that can kind of help with so going on vacation is not a reason to break from these habits. You actually want to do this so you can better enjoy your vacation, travel safely, and feel better about it. And this is kind of just a checklist. Let's see, kind of an action plan. Now, I'm just curious to know, let's see, hydration. Do you all carry water when you travel or go out? Does anybody like, oh, I'm going to the store and even if you're going somewhere, bring water with you? Do you guys bring water with you when you're going out? Always in the car. Always in the car. Yeah. Love it. Oh, these are my people. I love it. My wife does. Okay. Antoine. Okay, keep in my car. You should always keep some water in your car. I generally will keep bottled water in my trunk where it's cooler. It's usually cooler in the trunk than it is on the inside of the car. But I generally because if I'm not gonna need it, somebody else is gonna need it. Skin protection. Now, you don't have to have the big bottles, Now I know like, economically it's better to buy in large bulks, but sometimes they come with little travel. I generally keep a small little travel with me in my purse or in my car, because it's usually those times like, oh shoot, I forgot to, and then you have it ready with you. Um, Light breathable clothing, ideally in layers. So if I have like a tank top, I might put on a nice, like a little button-up shirt that I can just kind of take off but dressing in layers. So if it gets really hot, you can take that off. Um, Shade when you're going out. Now, it could be challenging sometimes, especially if you're like going out to a park or somewhere like that. There are a few trees, but you never know how the sun's going to be shining and if there's going to be shade. Listen, It's okay to have a chair with one of those little umbrellas out there with you. And I do keep an umbrella in my car. Sometimes it's for rain, sometimes it's for sun, because what I'm not going to do is pass out in this heat. So it's okay. Don't worry about what people are going to say. If it's hot and you have an umbrella, I promise you're going to be glad that you do. Um, and then when all possible, if you're somewhere, try to sit in the shade. No need to unnecessarily sit in direct sunlight. One, because you're gonna overheat faster, and then two, your skin will be happier if you sit in the shade. I need sunscreen on my hands when driving. It helps. Okay, very good, Bonnie. I hope you have some of these travel things in your car. I generally I use keep lotion in my car and some sunscreen. Also, traveling, and this is also just kind of to complete your kind of safety kit. Make sure that if you are going to travel, that you have your necessary medications and personal essentials with you, and then check the temperature, especially when you're traveling. I know sometimes we leave the travel plans to someone else, but sometimes the weather, unless you have a really good travel planner and you're in leading the trip, ask about the temperature checks. How hot is it going to be? Where are we going? How long are we going to be outdoors? So you can plan accordingly. Okay. Because although I'm always saying, like, drink water before you go out, if I know that I'm going somewhere like I'm going to the beach where there's not necessarily a lot of trees, I'm going to throw in some Gatorade in there. I'm going to prep with some Gatorade just because Gatorade's now you can do the sugar-free Gatorade also, I'll say that, but it's those electrolytes that are in there that are going to be helpful because when you're outdoors and it's hot, you're sweating, you're not only losing fluid, but you are losing important electrolytes. And sometimes it's better to have that in reserve than trying to catch up when I'm already starting to feel hot and a little bit dizzy and weak. Okay, and I think I might be, pardon this example, but kind of beating a dead horse here. But these are literally, I know it doesn't sound like rocket science, but as an emergency provider, when I see people come in and it's heat related, and then I ask them what were they doing, and did you have any water and things like that, it's almost like the classic sign. So I promise these subtle things will make a big difference. Um, Now, the hydrates early, I just want to also mention again, if you're someone who has a medical condition, you might be on a fluid restriction, right? You might be on a fluid restriction. I commonly see this with people with heart conditions, or maybe someone who's maybe like on dialysis, has a kidney condition. It's really important that especially if that applies to you or someone take extra precautions in these hot months. And also, really, it would be really great to talk to your doctor. Like, look, for example, I had a gentleman, elderly gentleman who's on dialysis. He was traveling to Mississippi for a family reunion. It was going to be really hot. And so, yes, he's on fluid restriction. And that's a whole nother thing, traveling when you're on dialysis. But we made a plan. We had to come up with a plan for how he would handle the heat and ensure that he had AC because he didn't have the reserves to, if he were going to experience some heat illness, he would quickly deteriorate and become very serious for him. So we had to come up with a plan with how he would maintain his fluid. So if you are on medications or have conditions, any of those, talk to your doctor about what is your contingency plan for those hot days. What can I do? Because if they tell you fluid restriction, many people follow their fluid restriction, and you might be afraid to drink more fluids, but there might be instances when you should. But talk to your doctor about what that looks like for you. Um, Recognize signs and symptoms. Don't wait for someone to tell you they feel a little bit dizzy. As soon as you've seen it, the person you've seen someone in the crowd, you're like, ooh, they look a little pale. They look like they're swaying a little bit. They might need to sit down. Yes. So please recognize the symptoms in others and be a good neighbor and tell someone, say, oh, you know what, are you okay? You look like you're going to pass out, type of thing. And sometimes people are either they're afraid or embarrassed to ask for help, or they might be so feeling dizzy they can't even muster the strength to do so. We talked about skin protection, staying active, and checking on others. So let's see. Now, this one was a little bit of a shorter presentation, but I'm happy to stay on to answer some questions. But the most important thing here is that we enjoy the sunshine, right? We want to enjoy the sunshine, but we have to remember to respect the heat because the heat ain't going nowhere. Unless you all know about an external thermometer that I can turn down this LA heat. We're kind of at the mercy of what the weather is. So the best offense is an even better defense and making sure that you're putting all the things in place for yourself and your neighbors and friends. And even when you're planning activities, be considerate of that and who you're inviting, and take that, yeah, just take that into consideration. So we're not kind of putting anyone in a position where they might experience these type of things. So that concludes today's presentation. Um, Now, I do want to say, I'm going to hang on. I'm going to answer some questions, things that you may have, but also want to invite you to our future presentations. Listen, we're going strong all year, but our next two that are coming up, shots, shingles, and staying well. We're going to talk about different types of preventative vaccinations and things as we're going to be entering into the fall. And then also we're going to talk about prostate health and healthy aging. So a more detailed conversation for our men about prostate cancer screening and all the things related.